court approves the amicus, that is the filing of it, then we have, I believe, 20 days to file a response if we want. And there may be other people who want to file amicus. So this may go on for a while, and there's no hearing set right now.
So where's the latest of the RTA election? The ballots are being held?
Right, every 3 months, I send a check for $450 over to Beth Ford for storage.
So what's your goal? Is to actually hand count, audit count? Is that the ultimate?
I'm really not in that part of it. My goal is to get this thing litigated. You know, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a technician, right. I'm not a computer guy.
So what would be the biggest point you'd want to prove in the litigation? What would be to give us two things that...
we have to prove that the RTA election was fraudulent, because that is the foundation that then gives us the right to ask the court for injunctive relief concerning future elections.
Was it fraudulent in the computer side or the ballot stuffing side, or where do you think? You're just going to prove any one of the three?
I'm told, and I think there's very credible evidence that the vote count was manipulated by computer.
Database side.
Yeah.
With the chain of command of the access database.
What's so funny about it is that Ralph Ellinwood.
Nice to meet you.
What's so funny about it is that if Pima County had just said, okay, what can we do to settle this up? We wouldn't need to go look at the RTA. We don't care about the RTA. It's over.
So it's changing the chain of command, the process, the technology, everything around elections is ultimately the goal.
Right. Is my understanding, there's a whole set of protocols which include things as simple as scanning ballots to other safeguards with regard to the data and the computer processing that could be put in place, and that would be the end of it.
If a call comes in, you'll need that, or to hear Ed, you'll need that. Otherwise, you don't have to. And you want to be about a fist away.
The Care Connection. Everything you need to know about senior care with Russell and Sam Burns. Saturday morning, 8 to 9 on 1030 KVOI. The Voice.
All right. It is that time again. We got 7:40 in the morning on the Wake Up Tucson show. A topic and a story that we've been covering for quite a while, and it made some splash in the news years ago, and it kind of rumbles through. Back when Governor Brewer was Secretary of State, she got involved in the chain of command on a bunch of ballots for the 2006 RTA election in Tucson. I guess, was it 3 or 4 times before we've tried to pass an overriding road bond, never went through, and all of a sudden in 06 it did. Money people came to the table, and there was many little fingers to try to get the votes to come in and do the right thing, including our light rail that we're debating right now. That was on that 2006 RTA ballot, and a bunch of work in the northwest side of town, and Kolb, and all over the place. That was a $2.1 billion vote for a 1-cent sales tax to be added on to everything you buy and purchase on the goods side, and it's a 20-year tax. So the voters got a chance to vote on it, and after the election, there were some real questions around the chain of command and the ballot itself. And we're being joined this morning by Ralph Ellinwood. Ralph, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
And you're an attorney in Tucson, and you've been a pioneering family and been here for quite some time.
I am. I'm a native and went to the U of A Law School and in my 38th year of practice.
Now, the Democratic Party at the time, Bill Reiser and a number of folks, really got kind of up in arms over the election and the process. They started kind of digging in and seeing some areas they didn't feel comfortable with, chain of command and the way ballots were counted and open source access databases that people were taking home with them and things like that, and we chronicled that. So this is about the RTA election of 06, but more importantly, how do we change things going forward, correct? It's not really about reversing that, it's about, gosh, what happened and how do we make it better?
Pima County has tried to make this a story that we're attacking the RTA election, and that's not true. That election is final. The Court of Appeals, the first time we were up there, agreed with us that we were not engaged in an election contest. What we have to do, though, is demonstrate the fraud in the RTA election in order to create the foundation to ask the Superior Court to issue injunctive relief concerning the conduct of future elections.
Going forward. So when you say the word fraud, is it ballot stuffing? Is it people voting unaccounted to? Is it in the computer system? Is it the Diebold system, which is 1992 or 3? I think we bought that thing 20 some years ago. Where do you see fraud if you make a claim like that?
Well, there have been a number of things that have been shown to us as problems. The Diebold system apparently is extremely vulnerable to hacking, and that's at least a big piece of what we think happened in the RTA election.
We talked about crop scanners that you can buy
Exactly.
that are used in the corn counting world.
That the county actually owned and used, and inexplicably.
Right.
Now,
there's been documentaries about this, and there's been a lot of energy nationwide on this conversation, because these Diebolds are used in different markets, and there's a back doors and tremendous ways to manipulate that system.
This is true, and this really isn't just about Pima County. I mean, the integrity of elections is a big thing in this country, as we learned in 2000.
Right. Bush v. Gore. Yeah.
Exactly. So, the public needs to have total confidence. This is not a partisan issue. It has nothing to do. In fact, I'm surprised that any party would be opposed to what we're trying to do here.
Rick, what's the role of a party, by the way, in a local party in Pima County?
Well, you want to make sure that your elections are run properly.
Correct.
It's election oversight.
And the Democratic Party actually took a pretty big lead on this. Back when the chair of the party, you did a 40-1 vote, I think, at the Democratic Party side to challenge the 06 election and to bring this forward and to really make it an issue. The Republican Party had been kind of missing through the whole process.
Well, I actually never represented the Democrats. Bill Reisner did. I got in this as lawyer for the Libertarian Party.
Okay.
And continue to represent them. And then when the Democrats pulled out of this lawsuit, Bill joined me in representing the Libertarians.
Gotcha. So what's the next step, or what are we moving to, or where do we go here? The court cases are long and drawn out, right?
Well, the Pima County has been remarkably successful in delaying this. They've never even filed an answer to our complaint. They have procedurally kept us getting knocked out without ever filing an answer, without ever, we've conducted, I think, one deposition.
So you want your day in court?
We want our day in court. We want to litigate,
right.
And we want to demonstrate that we
Show me your
can, in
card.
fact, prove what we say is happening. But Pima County doesn't want us to do that, and we're now back in the Court of Appeals for the second time. Division 2, which is Tucson, has shifted the case to Division 1 in Phoenix, and the Republicans have now filed an amicus brief, that is a friend of the court brief, which basically is a me too of the brief that was filed by Pima County. And so
the Republican Party, Pima GOP, filed a brief saying there's nothing to see here, please move along, or what was the brief, the content of the brief roughly?
I think let me get it here.
Actually, as you're doing that, we've got to run to one last break here. It's 7:46 in the morning. We're right back with Ralph Ellinwood. Apparently, this continues to roll through, and it talks about the watchdog role of the various parties, both Democrat, Libertarian, and Republican. Ralph's going to talk about a brief that was filed by the Republican Party that is kind of interesting.
Very much so.
Interesting. You're right back after the break. 7:46. Wake Up Tucson, 790-2040. If you know something about this or have a question about it, if you can't trust the ballot box, what can you trust? Let's have our day in court and just weigh it out there. Let's hear it.
Wake Up Tucson. You want to make sure and plug the website. Go to thefatally.flawed.com.
I forgot the name of the documentary.
Yeah.
So on the amicus brief, just hit the big points that you feel are important, because there's probably a gazillion things in there.
Who's the attorney that put that together for?
Sean Brarecliffe, who had just got appointed to the
He's a Democrat.
no, he's a Republican,
Republican,
and
just appointed him.
he represented the Republicans in this litigation.
And why would he write in front of the court?
And get appointed for a judge.
Can't get appointed for a
He was
judge.
asked by the county attorney.
Somebody else going to have to answer that one.
Okay.
I mean, the minute I saw his name on this,
Who paid for this? Did you do it as a pro bono?
I have no clue. Nobody consulted me.
Okay.
Had to be authorized at the GOP level. What
Sure.
does executive committee?
Executive committee would have authorized it, yeah. But he can file it on his own. I mean, he doesn't need to have authorization unless it's,
Well,
unless
he
he's,
does.
is he representing the, oh, he is
Sure,
representing
'cause
Pima County GOP?
He is saying, I represent Pima County Republican Central Committee.
Wow.
And this is filed in their name, not his.
All right, got it.
So,
That's a big deal.
Hey, now, this last election was so dismal around the country, around the state. There's been talk about upgrading technology and changing out and more accountability, and Chuck says, I need more money to buy the new technology. Has that moved anywhere? Because ultimately, when we get rid of these diebols, that's one opportunity to tighten this.
Well, you know, I think we're better off dealing with the devil we know than the devil we don't. Until we go ahead and have verifiable elections, just changing the equipment is not the answer. You know, the reason that we named the movie Fatally Flawed is one of the top scientists in the country was asked, what is the condition of the voting equipment in the United States? And he said it's fatally flawed. And we're 3 to 5 years away before they could be better out there. Because, you know, this stuff was built to cheat.
Well, one of the big problems that you've got too is that you've got almost 20% of your ballots in Pima County are duplicate ballots.
You
And
got
those
that
duplicate,
issue, you got the time
the
lag.
duplicate, I think that 100% of the problem here, if you are able to, and those duplicate ballots are done before they ever enter the machine.
Yes.
They're done visually. You visually inspect them, and then they're duplicated. And that
So these guys can tell with a loop if it's printed on an offset printer or a laser printer.
Yes.
sure. Well, that's the
Once they get a hold of it, they can
And-
tell if the stuff is happening.
And if you've ever been in the election office where they're doing the duplicate ballots, there are shelves stacked full of blank ballots.
And they have a machine
and the tracking
that they can
system.
push a button. It's called Ballot on Demand.
Yes.
And it was a report that came out in the 50 states, and Arizona was criticized. You know what for? Big thing? No accountability of the ballots.
Yeah.
You know, you're running a business. How much cash did you start with? How much inventory did you spend? And does it balance?
And as the ballots go, the duplicate ballot goes with the original ballot, but they don't audit track the duplicate ballot. It's coded. It's coded separately. There is a number given to it that codes back to the duplicate ballot, but there's never an audit trail of somebody inspecting to make sure that the ballots were done properly.
How's FAM doing?
We need Bill Beard.
I think the problem's on the Brett Nelson side. All right, it's 7:49 in the Wake Up Tucson show. We're back on the air. We're talking about election integrity. 2006 lawsuit regarding from the originally Democratic Party, now the Libertarian Party's taken up the mantle, and they're trying to not reverse that election, but get accountability as to what's going on, why, and how. The chain of command on votes and where the votes are handled and brought in, the actual debold system, and the database control. We're on with Ralph Ellinwood, local attorney with a multiple long-year history in Southern Arizona, practicing law. And Ralph, you're just about to go to the amicus brief that was filed on behalf of the Pima County Republican Party, the Pima County GOP, whose one of their goals is to watch elections. And the amicus brief basically said, hey, the county government's doing a good job, and stand down, right? What's the gist of the amicus briefs that have been put out?
well, this is what I would call a Me Too brief, which actually is not what amicus is for. It was filed on behalf of the Pima County Republican Central Committee, and it echoes what the Pima County's position has always been, which I think is classic red herring, which is they're trying to overturn the RTA election, which is totally untrue. And so this brief argues that finality of elections, in effect, is more important than the integrity of future elections. Which, if that argument prevails, basically means no one's ever going to be able to challenge any election.
Right.
Because the 5-day window that is given by statute to challenge an election is simply too short in modern times with computer vote counting to be able to make the case that has to be made.
Why would the Pima County Republican Party, and who's the attorney?
The attorney that filed this, his name is Sean Brarecliffe, and he was just appointed to the Superior County bench.
Oh, he's a judge now. So why would they do this at this time, and what would cause this to, who knows?
You got to call another witness. I have no clue.
Well, again, it goes back to roll the party, and of all the things we should be doing, registering voters, getting our folks voting for the Republican candidates, those kind of things. It's interesting that this would be one they'd back away from and kind of decide on.
Well,
if anything, to stay out of the middle of it as well.
I think it's surprising because the Libertarians and the Democrats, and I always assumed the Republicans, And the Greens and anybody else should care a lot about the integrity of elections.
Right.
And this is simply not partisan.
Right.
It is something that affects all of us as
Right.
voting citizens.
I keep going back to the, during Iraq after the war, the women with the purple fingers, that was something that they were so proud of, being able to vote and know their vote was counted. And the purple finger was a photo that showed that they did their part.
Well, that's a question, Joe. That is whether or not you actually know whether or not your vote counted, and that's been the question mark for me for quite a while. Now we've got in Pima County, we've got an appointed position for the gentleman that runs the election division, which is appointed by the Board of Supervisors, and his name is Brad Nelson.
Actually appointed by the
He's actually appointed by the administrator, who is put into place by the Board of Supervisors.
And a lot of counties, it's done by F. Rodriguez type person, right?
Right, but done by the
Says
Secretary of
yeah,
State.
Secretary
So,
of State.
or excuse me, the
Recorder.
Recorder's Office. So you've got where I think the problem lies is really in how many duplicate ballots that we have in Pima County compared to the rest of the counties. And the ability to massage those ballots is really a dangerous place, in my opinion. Because what you've got is that you've got two people sitting in a room, one calling out what's on a ballot, and one person filling in a second ballot, and the audit trail of that is really weak. And I think that if we were going to really attack this and really realize that some of your ballots out there, 20%, 1 out of every 5 ballots in Pima County is duplicated. And I think that that's a frightening number for most folks.
Duplicated how?
Meaning that when you mail your ballot in, when they unfold it out of the little yellow envelope, and after it's been checked for signature comparison, one individual looks at it and says it's got a coffee stain, there was an X instead of a dot, there was a partial dot that was put in, and then it goes into the duplication pile. And the duplication pile means that there are two people sitting side by side, one person filling out a new ballot, and one person reading off of the ballot that needs to be duplicated. So 1 out of every 5 ballots in Pima County are being duplicated. And then that duplicated ballot then goes through the die-bold machine to be counted.
I think at the core of this issue, though, was these databases, access databases. When things start coming in, early ballots counted.
Well, those are those early ballots,
too. Who had control of laptops, and where were they, and could you flip a yes for a no, or I liked and I didn't, or candidate A for candidate B? And
Yeah, what seems to have been the case in the RTA election, and both Bill Reisner and I feel that there is strong evidence of this, is that the vote totals were actually changed using a crop scanner. And there's some very disturbing evidence that a county employee took home the entire database during the course of the vote count overnight.
I've had conversations kind of slip out, like people know early ballot results before the election's over, from the elected officials.
Sure. Well,
It's going somewhere.
Who's got control of the 2006 ballots?
Well, right now they sit at Iron Mountain, which is a private storage company, and the Libertarian Party is paying Beth Ford, the county treasurer, $450 every 3 months in storage fees.
Now, why can't there be couldn't this simply be a request for the courts to release those ballots to be manually counted?
Well, that's part of the court case.
Right.
Litigation.
So
That's part of the litigation.
Why would the county be resistant to that?
They want the ballots destroyed.
Okay, so doesn't that tell something to the folks out there? The county wants the ballots to be destroyed. All of these questions could be answered simply by releasing them, have an independent group count those ballots with Pima County elections folks there with it, and do a recount of these ballots. You'll be able to find out in a second.
Actually, it's from our point of view, it's easier than that, because we're not challenging the RTA election. We're not trying to undo a 2006 election.
But you're going to find out there whether or not that election was relevant or was credible.
What we have to do for purposes of asking the court to give us relief, that is injunctive relief for future elections, is prove that in fact it was fraudulent. Pima County could solve this entire problem, and to me it's very strange that it hasn't happened over these years, by simply agreeing to put in place the safeguards, which there are many, and they're pretty cheap, and they would really work. And they have resisted that solution.
Interesting. Okay, let's grab a phone call from Lori. Lori, you had a call and a weigh-in on the brief.
Explain what you know there.
I was part of the first lawsuit that happened the week before last year's election,
Yep.
along with Bill Beard.
Yep.
I'm a Republican, as was Bill Beard.
Right.
And again, I don't really give a hoot about the RTA. That's over and done with.
Right.
But that is where there's smoke, there's fire, and that's the smoke. And if we can get that part out,
Right.
and again, we don't want to redo the RTA. All we want to do is show that this is potentially maybe not where it started. And Rick, to me, it has nothing to do with watching people count ballots and duplicating ballots, although that's an issue as well, and that needs to be cleaned up. For me, it's before the machine is ever turned on, what's in it, and how can that be tampered with, and was it tampered with, and can it be tampered with in the future?
Right. Right.
And that's the bigger part of it.
So the Pima County GOP weighing in on this, is that something, how do you think about that?
Well, I think it should have been a bigger pool of people deciding this other than the executive committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that there was one dissenting vote. But again, as Mr. Ellinwood said, this is not about Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green. This is fair is fair.
Right.
Show me that this is a fair election and that everything has been done beyond reproach to make sure that every ballot was counted and nothing was tampered with.
Right.
Period.
Right. Well, and if there's I guess, Laura, if there's another side of this story from the GOP or from the county that want to weigh in on another piece we're not seeing, we'd be great to. We've kind of dug into this a long time and a while, so I want to thank you for your call and weighing in on this. Thanks,
Okay.
Lori. So, Ralph, what next? We just see these more briefs come in, and we kind of try to get your day in court to kind of come to the bottom of what's happening.
Well, we're hopeful that the Court of Appeals will send this case back to the trial court with instructions to let us proceed to litigate the case. And we remain hopeful that at some point Pima County would agree that the way elections are conducted is open to real question and agree to safeguards. And if they would, that would solve the problem.
All right, you got the last word. Thanks, Ralph. Thanks for the Brakeys and the Reisners and all those folks doing it. If there's something there, let's get to it. If there's not, let's move forward. But it's time we have our day in court, I think. Let's get down to the basics here, folks. Got to get elections. You got to get out and vote, educate the listeners, and you got to turn out and vote and make sure it's counted. Thanks, Rick, for sitting in.
Our pleasure.
Great day.
On the light side of life. Always look on the bright side.
This is Andrea Tanteros. Fresh, fun commentary from the right. Stay tuned for more intelligent talk right here on AM 1030, KVOI, Cortero, Tucson, The Voice.